Welcome to Cybertron. This is my video review of my custom Cybertron 2005 Scourge or Flame Convoy from Galaxy Force. So here's a 360 view of this guy. So you can kind of, maybe you could tell if you have this view, you can see a lot of where the customization is. So he's got these ball joint ankles, ball joint elbows, and then the dragons have ball joints. And then I painted all the dark purple bits. I just redid in like this magenta, this metallic magenta color. And I did his nails too, because why not? And then here's a size comparison. You can see he's bigger than a leader class. And I guess Nemesis Prime, Scourge, I guess this is all the same character according to some people. And then you can see he's much bigger than a leader class figure at this point. He's definitely bulkier. He's just a little bit taller than your Transmetal Megatron. And then you can see that here he is with his lighter pink kind of face. I probably went a little bit darker than I should have. I probably could have gone one coat less, but you can see it's got like this pink metallic finish to it, which is very cool, which matches with his chest crystal pretty well. And then I did preserve all of his electronics, so you can press this, and then his dragon head, and the eyes will light up. And then if you give him his cyber key, which I still happen to have, you can just insert that here, and that triggers the transformation sound effect, and then you can get like this laser sound effect, which I guess is these shooting the laser. I'm not sure where this laser is coming from exactly. But yeah, so I worked a lot on his axe because I feel like his axe could have been a little bit better than the stock configuration. So you can see it's a little bit longer. I gave it this shaft here because originally the axe was only this long, and then he would hold it at the very bottom here, which is not a great way to hold an axe. So I put this shaft in it so that he can hold it at any point along that, and then this piece just slides back into place to kind of hide it up. So pretty good looking. You might notice that the colors are off. This is actually because this was a Cryotech axe, and I had to repaint it, so the colors are not the original colors. And if I knew I was going to make this custom, I actually would have painted this magenta too, but I've had this for years, and I just decided to make this figure that I always wanted to make. So I always wanted to improve this guy. I just didn't have the skills to do it when I was younger. So these dragon heads are now on ball joints instead of being spring loaded. And then I did change the spring loading in their jaws so that it springs closed instead of springing open, which I think is an improvement. And then they do have, it's kind of hard to see it in the lighting, but they do have like a metallic magenta. I repainted their eyes as well, so they're not purple anymore. And then the inside of their mouth is also painted metallic magenta, and I painted their teeth because why not? But yeah, it's pretty fun to just flick their mouths. And then these can just fold back behind his back, just like sort of like the original figure. They have to turn around to fold correctly, but then they're flush with his back. So then you get a good look at his proportions, and I did fix up his proportions a lot. It's kind of hard to tell. So he is taller than the original figure because I gave him these new ankle joints, and I spread out his arm elbows a little bit because his original elbows were down here. So now his arms have been lengthened a little bit. And the really nice thing I did was I cinched in his waist. So I cut a lot of this plastic out, and that's why you can see the speaker is just exposed. So I cut a lot of this plastic out and then widened his chest a little bit just to give him more of that brutish kind of look. So I think it's a pretty big improvement from his original. All right, and I hope Cybertron.com doesn't mind if I use one of their photos to just show off what he used to look like. So you could see he was a little more stumpy. I lengthened his legs to make him look a little bit more graceful, and his arms. So that's how he used to look compared to how he looks now. And I feel like I did clean him up a lot. And plus you can see the difference in the paint color. So his face was a lot darker. I definitely prefer the magenta. And then another thing I did was I brought his dragon head and his skirt are closer to his body. So you can see how far that skirt used to stick out right here compared, and the dragon head used to be way out here. And you can see in my version everything's like a little bit more streamlined, more cleanly integrated into like a solid figure. Alright, so some of the other things I did was I ball jointed his shoulders, so now his shoulders have outward motion. Not a terrible amount of outward motion, but a good enough amount. And those still have 360, of course. And then he's got kind of this butterfly joint, which doesn't really do anything. It's more of a transformation joint. And then he can now bend his elbows here. The original figure, you had to do curling iron bends like this. But now he can just bend his elbows here, which looks a lot more natural for holding his weapon. So that's a good look. And plus I like having these spikes on the outside of his forearms instead of under his arms like this. So yeah, I could have just did a wrist swivel, but I felt like doing his arms like this would look cooler, which I think it does. And then the other thing is, of course, ball joint ankles, which were more for his proportions than anything, but of course that makes him nice and stable getting in his poses. He can grab his axe in a variety of ways now. We could just actually have him hold it like this, which also looks pretty cool. So this shoulder's a little weak, but he can do like the pose from the box or whatever from his artwork. He can actually do it now. So yeah, that's pretty cool. And then all his original joints are still in place, all his ratchets. And then I did take this joint apart to find out what was wrong with this ratchet joint, because this ratchet explodes. And I did put polyplastic in there to fix that ratchet, so now that you can hear it, nice and clicky, working perfectly again. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and transform him, and you can see some more of the changes I did to him. So for his axe, you're just going to rotate that around, and then it's just going to bend here basically. And that makes his dragon tail a little bit longer, which I think he needs. And then for his head, you're just going to rotate that around, and then we're going to bring up this whole dragon neck section. And this is going to reveal a lot of the ugliness in here, because I just basically just cut everything out of here. But you're going to go ahead and cover it up with his hip skirt. And now his hip skirts transform a little bit differently. They're going to actually straighten out all the way, and that's going to cover in some of this gappage down here. So it's going to be here. It used to like settle here in his chest, but because I lengthened the dragon mode a lot, that's going to be necessary. And then you can see there used to be plastic here, but I cut it all out. And then you can lengthen his torso here, and it kind of clicks into place. And then you just get his legs situated. I like to do them like this, but there's a lot of jointage, so there's things you can do. And then just point his heel spurs. So we're getting a good looking dragon mode, and then we can go ahead and peg this into that friction peg right there. And there you got the whole rear end of the dragon, and then just get these smaller dragon heads out of the way, pretend they're not there. And then I bought this version, doesn't have the arm covers, unfortunately. I didn't realize, I totally forgot that was a piece. And then you just rotate his shoulders, rotate his arms forward. And there you have his dragon mode, nice and simple, not too difficult. And then he's got this double joint neck, so that's another piece of articulation I made for him. So we can compare that to the original look. Okay, I think I've got this size correct. So they're actually about the same size in these. So this is actually the same size as in the picture. So his neck is a lot longer, so he's now much taller. And plus his forelegs are taller. And then his midsection is spread out more because he's got these, because he has that extra ankle joint. So even his back legs are taller. So just overall, the dragon mode went from being like kind of this really compact fine looking mode to now just this dragon that's much larger, longer, more slender and graceful. Alright, so we can get a good look at that dragon mode. And I guess technically his tail is supposed to drag on the ground or whatever, but he's like now too tall for that. So his tail is just going to go ahead and stay off the ground like that. So I really prefer this dragon mode. He's just more graceful. And then he does have, of course, ball joint neck and the dragon head, and then another ball joint neck at the base of the dragon head. And you see the wires have to be exposed just to keep all the electronics in there, and we can go ahead and activate that. And we'll take out his cyber key. And you can see that the eyes flash. And then if you open up the mouth, there's some magenta paint in there as well. You can see we got some light up features in there too. So pretty cool. I'm glad I got to keep all the electronics. It's a little hard. I probably need to glue this battery pack in place right here because it's just frictioned in place. But I think he's a pretty convincing looking dragon. He's very wide in the front because I did widen his shoulders. But I think he still makes a very intimidating looking dragon. And then we can go ahead and bring his side heads online as well. Get those in position. And that's how he looks with all three of his heads. And I guess the nice thing about spring loading the heads the other way is that his heads would all be open. You could have all their mouths open at the same time. But that's how he looks basically in his ultimate mode. There's some ball joints going on, so it's gotta like line up his legs a little bit better. But yeah, I think that looks pretty great. I think everything is still nice and proportional, and I do like that the heads can now all turn and look different directions, so they don't all have to be facing front. So yeah, pretty good. And then his chest is caved in, but I think that's okay. I think it kind of works out well enough. But yeah, I think that's a pretty great looking dragon. I hope you agree. And then he can tilt his head forward to be like in more of an attack mode. The wires are a little tight here, so I'm gonna have to figure out maybe how to give it a little more slack. I might have to make them longer. But for now, that's where he's at, and then we can get all the dragon heads ready to attack. So yeah, that looks pretty cool. And there we go, we can have the two dragons face off against each other, the winged dragon versus the four-legged dragon. And I think this guy's definitely bulkier, but this one of course has the air advantage and the height advantage because he can stand up on two legs. I guess if this guy was up on two legs, he would definitely have the height advantage. But yeah, I hope you liked that custom, and I'll see you in the next one.